2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It looks like we still have a few more that could be joining us. Welcome back after at least central spring break. I know most of us didn't have spring break at our other schools this week. Yeah, this week is going to be pretty low key. Basically, I wanted to take a few moments and talk a little bit more detail about the gamification projects. Last class, part of the activity was for people to propose ideas for activities that they would like to gamify and get some feedback on those. So hopefully at this point, you've got at least a basic idea of kind of what you would like to do for that project. So tonight I'm going to go through what you're actually doing with the project and how you're going to report out your results and so on. So that's what I want to do over this, basically over this first half hour or so. And then as everyone saw, because it did look like everybody got signed up for a time, I just want to have 10 minutes with each of the game groups and just kind of do a check-in. There's nothing specific. You don't have to do a report or presentation or anything like that, but just to make sure that all of the game groups feel comfortable with where they are. If there's any questions I can answer at this point, and kind of take it from there. So that'll be the bulk of the rest of the evening, is just meeting in those 10-minute meetings. So that's kind of it. And honestly, as we look going forward, the majority of the remainder of the time in this course is basically production time and lab time with your groups and with your game projects to start to bring them to a conclusion, and also to finish up the gamification projects as well. So in terms of sort of new instructional pieces, there's not a whole lot more. I'm going to have some things available next week about some online resources with some different game platforms that are online that you might want to check out, but nothing really new in terms of new information or anything like that. So the bulk of our instructional work is sort of done at this point, and the remainder of the course is largely going to be about working on production and working on the projects. So I guess sort of along those lines, just to give a picture of the next few weeks, is next week is an asynchronous week for this class. So honestly, the main thing would be to use next week. You don't obviously have to use Wednesday night, but to use next week's time to keep moving forward on the game projects. In 2 weeks, the activity 2 weeks from now is going to be to do some beta testing. So at that point, your games should be far enough along that they can at least roughly be played. Maybe not 100% complete, but at least the majority of the rules and the framework are there. So in contrast to the alpha testing a few weeks ago, where you were just running ideas by people, in 2 weeks' time, hopefully you'll actually be able to have people play at least part of your game, if not the whole game, to again get a round of feedback about how the rules are working. Was there any confusion about the way the game was played? Are there any things that you need going forward from there? So that'll be in 2 weeks' time. So that's, again, with next week being an asynchronous week, the main thing will be over the next 2 weeks to get those games to a roughly playable state in 2 weeks. The Scratch projects are technically due next week on the 30th, but that's not a hard and fast deadline. If you need a little bit more time, certainly feel free to use it. I will just look for the projects to get posted in the studio in Scratch, and when I see them show up there, then I will pair them up with the paperwork that's in the Moodle, and start to take a look at those as they come in. But the technical due date for that is a week from tonight on the 30th. Man, I can't believe it's already coming up on March 30th, end of March. So that's sort of the outline of the next few weeks. And then, I mean, we go through week 15. Let's see if I can figure this out in the top of my head. Week 13 is when the gamification projects are due, and we will be doing short presentations on that week about your gamification projects and how they went and what you did and what you learned. So that'll be in week 13. Week 14 is another asynchronous lab week to just basically finish up the game projects. And our final class will be week 15, where we will do some group presentations about the game projects and how they turned out. So that's actually kind of a rough outline of the remainder of the course. I think that hit every week between now and the end. So any questions about any of that, about calendar, schedule, where we are, when things are due? We're good. All right. So let me then talk about the gamification projects. So over the last two classes, through the forum in week 7 and then through your discussion forum in week 8, hopefully by now you've got a pretty good handle on what gamification means. Basically taking an activity and incorporating some elements of gaming into it. Not turning it into a full-fledged game, but giving it, an end game, or giving it competition, or a set of rules, or some combination. And the bottom line almost always is that the reason we gamify things is to increase the interest in doing that thing, to increase the motivation to do something. So whether that's in a classroom or at home or at work or for you personally or for whoever it's for, that's generally the idea. Is here's something that people generally don't want to do, and we want to make them want to do it, so we're going to add in gaming elements to somehow make it more interesting to do. So with your topic, or what the activity that you want to gamify, there is now in the Moodle. Oh, let me do this. Let me do some sharing here. This. There we go. This is, by the way, this is on the Moodle. So, but there is now a wiki available for the gamification, kind of similar to what we've been doing with the game projects too. But since this is an individual project, everybody has their own subpage in the wiki. And this will basically be where you do all of your record keeping and your planning and so on for this particular project. So within your own page, you'll go into the edit mode, and there's a series of questions or things that you will be filling in as you go. And that'll be basically what you submit at the end will be this. So I'm going to duck into one of these pages just so you can see what is being asked for. It's essentially, again, an instructional design model. So starting off with the analysis piece. So what are you trying to solve with this gamification process? What's the problem? Since we are focusing on gaming and motivation, probably your problem is going to be some version of this group of people or me or whoever is not generally motivated to do this particular thing, and I need to increase the motivation for that particular thing. So you're going to then be, what's the need? You're going to be incorporating some elements of gaming, and that's going to depend on what your plan is. And also a little bit just about your audience. Looking through the ideas in the forum from last week, I saw some people were focused on themselves. Some people were focused on activities around their house. Some people were focused on activities in their classrooms or at their work sites. So whoever are the people that do the activity that you are hoping to address, just give a quick description of who that audience is. And then the actual planning of what you're going to do. So describe the existing activity So as as people do it right now, what is the process that they go through to do the activity? If you can address maybe why you think the activity is not very motivational as it stands, you can talk about that. Then in terms of the game elements, we have those major things of rules, competing agents, the ambiguous decisions, the end game. Which of those four do you see incorporating into your activity? It can be one of them, it could be a combination of them. But again, we're not trying to make a game, so we don't need to have all four of them. But think about what you're going to do. And again, a lot of you in the last forum post already posted some ideas about what you might be doing to modify the activity. And then, as sort of the opposite of question one, question three, then describe like how you are going to present the new activity with the gamification included in it. So, what's the new activity going to look like? So that's your planning phase. If you happen to need any materials or resources, you can fill that in here. You may not. Depending on what the activity is, there may not be any additional items that you need to include. If that's the case, just put in here, no materials needed or anything like that. But just if there is anything that you need to create, you can record that here. And then the big piece of this, and again, we've got a full month until these are due, is to actually implement this activity. So, if you're maybe still figuring out a topic, make sure it's something that you can actually do with your target audience sometime in the next month. Because we don't often get the chance to take something like this all the way to its final phase, but this is an activity that we can actually get some evaluation on and can actually see whether it did what we wanted it to do and so on. So once you have your plan in place, find a time to actually do the thing, whether it's a single day activity or something that you track over the course of a week or something like that. So just describe then for this, when did you do this thing? How did it go? Were there any issues that came up as you tried to use your plan or put your plan into place? So that will be a piece of it. And then the final thing is just a little bit of reflection of after you did it, did you see any evidence that motivation increased? I mean, ideally, the answer would be yes, but this is the first time many of us are doing this. So other things may get in the way, or things may not go as well as we hope, or maybe they'll go better than you think, whatever. So just try to look at whatever evidence you have. And this doesn't have to be, you don't need like hard data figures. This can be more, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm drawing a blank. It can be more generalized in terms of the data that you're collecting. You don't need numeric data. Just a little reflection on how it went and whether you saw any improvement. And then on the activity itself, if you were to do this thing again, is there anything that you would change? Having kind of gone through the process with an audience, is there anything that you would change going forward to make it better if you were to use it again sometime? So again, each of you has one of these pages on the wiki. You simply go into edit mode and then start filling in the information for each of these as you go. And as I said, we've basically got a month to do this. I think I said week 13 is when we're going to do the presentations on these. So that gives you some time to get your plan in place and have some time to actually implement it, and then to do a little bit of reflection on it. And then this is all you have to turn in is just this, and then the brief presentation in that 1 week. I did have one year where one student actually videotaped. I forget, the activity was. I think the reward, I think he was doing it with his kids, and the reward was like that they got to throw water balloons at him or something like that. So he had actually videotaped his kids throwing water balloons at him, and he shared that too. But you don't need to go that far with this. It's more just about kind of thinking about, this is a tool in the toolbox. Here's an activity I've got to get my students to do, or get my kids to do, or get myself to do, and I'm just not motivated to do it. So can I incorporate some of what I know about games and game development to make the activity a little bit more fun to do and a little bit more motivated to do. So any questions on the scope of that or the procedure? All right, I'll take that silence as a good sign. So that's basically it. If you need to review the original scope or the write-up about the project, I did put a link here back. This was from, I forget what week this was in, week 8, I guess. That kind of just goes through those steps in case you need that for review. But most of it is again the wiki and just getting the information entered in there and just finding a time to do it sometime in the next month. All right. So honestly, I may as well go through this now because I still have a few minutes before the first meetings start. Again, just looking forward in terms of where we are. The group game projects, the focus over the next 2 weeks should be on getting the games to a roughly playable condition. Not 100% complete necessarily, but at least far enough along that you could have a test audience try the game out. We're going to have to be a little creative with that. This beta testing is the one thing I think that has suffered the most by not being in person, because when everyone was in person, it was real easy just to have people shuffle around and try out the different games. So the beta testing might have to be something that you figure out a way to do, at your location, wherever that is. But that'll be in a couple of weeks that we want to have the games there. Make sure that you are updating the game wiki with any information as you get it completed. Any of the instructional design questions, the flow chart should be being developed, and that should be put in there. You can either link to an online flow chart or upload a file or an image. That should be in there. A set of the rules should find their way in there. And again, that could be either just typing the rules in or attaching a document to it. Descriptions of any of the physical elements. You need at least one digital element, one interactive digital element that could be a Scratch project, or if you've got another interactive digital technology you want to use, that is perfectly okay too. But just keep going back to that wiki and making sure that everything is making it in there, especially if your group is using some other platform to converse or to work things out. So just keep that going. And as I just went through, then the gamification project. You can start working on. You've got a month to work on that, and again, just keep everything updated in the wiki. And then, as I said at the beginning of class, the Scratch projects are technically due next week. If you need more time than that, that's totally fine. I will just start evaluating the projects as I see them come in. A couple of you have contacted me with specific questions about the coding in your project. Feel free to do that. If you want your project to do something and you just can't quite figure out how to get it to do that thing, feel free to reach out to me with any questions, and I can take a look inside your code and see if there's any suggestions I can make. Here in the lab tonight already, we've looked at a couple of little things. One thing to be aware of, and I'm not saying you can't do it, but I've already seen it from a number of people, is feature creep, which just means once you get into a project and you get it going, and then you kind of get it all working, and then you start going, oh, I really wish that I could also have it do this. Oh, wouldn't it be neat if I could have it also do this thing? And there's nothing wrong with that if you want to get into that and add additional things into your project that maybe weren't part of the original plan. But remember, these don't need to be complicated. The two main goals with the Scratch projects are that one, they are interactive in some way. So just something that the user does to the program, and then the program does something back based off of that. And that you've demonstrated that you can have an idea of what you want the program to do. That's the narrative piece, and that you were then successfully able to get the coding to do that thing you wanted it to do. So it doesn't have to be complex or complicated or intricate. It, basically for this project, as for many of us, a first experience with coding, it just needs to show that you were able to take an idea and instruct the computer how to realize that idea, and that it involves some interaction with the user. So don't feel like you have to keep adding feature on feature on feature on feature to your projects if you don't wish to. So those are really the three things that we have going forward. And again, next week will be fully asynchronous, so it'll just be a week to work on any or all of this. And then we will be back together the week after to somehow do some sort of beta testing activity. So any questions? All right. I'm trying to use wait time. I'm trying to give everyone a chance to speak up. Yeah, I know. For the people in the room. So, all right. So what basically the rest of the evening is going to be just having these meetings. Let me check in here. I'm pretty sure we had, 7 groups signed up. I know the 8th group is somebody who's not here in class tonight, so I knew about that. So so starting at in about 5 minutes or so, I'll be meeting with Jolie, and then just basically every 10 minutes after that. Probably the best thing to do is to go ahead and log out. And then that way, when you log back in, it'll put you in the waiting room. And that way, if I'm still working with somebody, just sit in the waiting room until I let you in. Maybe come in a little early before your time if things go really well. I don't know, some groups may not have a whole lot we have to go over. So if you sign in a few minutes early and I'm ready, I'll just let you in and we'll just keep things rolling. But that's basically the plan then for the rest of the evening, is just to check in with each group and see how everyone's doing. All right. So that's basically that. So actually, yeah. So Jolie, if you want, you can just hang out. And the rest of you are free to go. And then I will just see each of you at your times, and we'll go from there. So thank you.